Can you see me? This is the LG 3293GRU-B Monitor. It's one of LG's mid-range monitors, and this is my full in-depth review. I've had the LG 3393GRU-B Monitor now for just over a year, and this is my full in-depth review. Starting with the design, it's a 32-inch 4K 120Hz IPS monitor. It sits in the mid-range when it comes to gaming monitors. As you can see, it's very large. It's 32 inches, 4K, 120, 4K, up to 144Hz IPS panel, and also supports a load of other features which I'll get into later when we're talking about the display. The first thing I noticed about this monitor is definitely the sheer size. If you're coming from a smaller monitor such as a 27-inch monitor or even a 24-inch monitor, you'll definitely be shocked at how big the monitor is. When I got this monitor just over a year ago, it took me a few months just to get used to the sheer size of the thing. It's definitely a monster, and 32 inches is definitely on the larger side when it comes to monitor. Obviously monitors come in, you've got 24-inch monitors, you've got 27, you've got 30-inch, you've got 32, and now you can even get, upwards of 32 to 40-inch monitors. So actually 32 inches is probably in the middle when it comes to monitor sizes. Probably the biggest selling point of the monitor is the size of it. If you really want a big monitor, then this monitor is definitely large, and yeah. The monitor is almost entirely constructed from hard plastic. If you look at the base, it's constructed from plastic. The side bezels and the chin, plastic again. The back of the monitor is pretty much all hard plastic. I would have loved if LG had opted for maybe some brushed aluminium perhaps in the base or on the back. I think that an all plastic design for a mid-tier monitor at this price is slightly disappointing. I would have loved if LG maybe opted for maybe a kind of two-tier design, perhaps some aluminium or brushed metal or magnesium in the base. For example, the Apple Studio display is pretty much entirely constructed out of high quality brushed aluminium, which I think looks 100 times better. However, it is almost double the price at over £1,000. Even though this monitor is almost entirely constructed from hard plastic, it doesn't mean that the monitor looks or feels cheap. The base is strong and sturdy, it's not going to break. The base is definitely large enough to support the mass of the monitor, but yet it's not too large that it doesn't take up too much space on your desk. And the base of the monitor also isn't too deep so that you can put the monitor far back on your desk, which is often a problem with a lot of these large monitors. I think the design of the monitor is really cool. LG have opted with a hexagonal kind of design. If we look on the back, we can see that this part here is just one massive hexagon, and if we look closely on the back, we can see that there are lots of hexagons. It's kind of a hexagonal theme with a kind of glossy plastic finish. Pretty much the entire product is in this kind of dark grey finish. There's not much of a contrast. If you do want to add some contrast, then definitely turn on these ambient lights, which are on the side here and here, which I'll get into later. I'll show you. The ambient lighting has 3 modes. You've got off, cycling or static, and I think it's a really cool feature of this monitor. Not all monitors come with equipped ambient lighting or even good looking ambient lighting, and the fact that LG have decided to add ambient lighting on the rear of this monitor is really a really cool idea, meaning that I don't need to purchase or attach third-party ambient lighting strips from, say, Philips Hue. The monitor supports height adjustability. Here we've got it in the tallest position. You can also put it down like so using your hand, and it's not difficult to do so. I usually use it at about 60% height, but if you're a tall lad or girl and you need your monitor to be high, you can obviously put it in the tallest position, or if you need your monitor to be low down, then you can put it down like so. The monitor is also rotatable. If you need to use the monitor in a portrait orientation, you can rotate it like so. This is what it looks like from the front. I've never used the monitor in this portrait orientation, but I know that lots of companies, offices often have multiple monitors at their setups, and often portrait orientated monitors can be useful, especially in airports. If we return the monitor back to the horizontal position, which I'm going to guess that most people use their monitor, we can see side bezels. We've got the front, we've got the top bezel, we've got the side bezels, but the bottom bezel is slightly thicker at about 1 centimeter. This does mean that we can have a Ultra Gear logo at the bottom, which is the only kind of branding that there is on the front of the panel. At the bottom of the monitor there is a joystick button which you'll use to turn on and off the monitor and to navigate the on-screen menu. The monitor doesn't have any inbuilt speakers, which is where we'll find the 3.5mm headphone jack, which you'll need to connect to your external audio devices such as your speakers or your headphones, or if you're planning on using Bluetooth headphones then you won't need to use the 3.5mm headphone jack. The base isn't too big that it takes up too much on your room, but it's big enough to support the mass of the monitor. You can see here we've got the LG branding on the side, and then we've got the Nvidia and G-Sync sticker on the side. When it comes to connecting this monitor to either your computer, PS5, Xbox or Mac, we've got two HDMI 2.1 ports, we've got a couple of USB 3 ports, we've got a wired headphone port for better quality audio, and then we've also got the power port. Unfortunately there is no USB-C port, which is disappointing, especially in 2025, or even for a 2023 monitor, which is when this monitor released. Which means that this monitor is not future-proof, which is really annoying, as Thunderbolt 5 and USB-C is now kind of a standard for connecting either your laptop or computer to your external display, such as a monitor of this type. Meaning that if you do own an older MacBook that only has USB-C or Thunderbolt 5 ports, you can't connect this monitor to it, as you'll only be able to connect this monitor via HDMI or DisplayPort. Luckily for me, my Xbox Series X connects to this monitor via HDMI 2.1, and my Mac Mini also connects to this monitor. The most important thing about buying a monitor is the display, as that's what you're going to be looking at for most of the time. Where this monitor really does shine, it's a 32-inch screen, and the first thing you will notice about this screen, at least I hope you can see on this camera, is how bloody big the thing is. 32 inches for me is definitely on the larger end, and if you're used to using a 27-inch monitor or even a 24-inch monitor, then 32 inches is going to take a while to get used to. I still find a monitor probably quite big. I came from a 27-inch monitor, and it definitely took me a few months to get used to the sheer size of the bloody thing. The screen technology is IPS, as opposed to other screen technologies such as OLED VA or TN. IPS panels typically have great colours with strong viewing angles when compared to, say, V8 or TN, which often have weaker viewing angles. The colours obviously aren't quite as good as what you'll get on an OLED panel, however OLED panels are only generally available on the top tier, really expensive monitors. If you are looking for the best quality of the screen, then definitely check out an OLED monitor if money is no object. LG do sell top tier OLED monitors if you're looking for the screen with the best colours, with those inky black. The screen resolution is 380/20 by 1440p, so you've got full 4K resolution, which is fantastic. The screen maxes out at 144 Hz for the refresh rate, and obviously as the screen features HDMI 2.1, you can connect your latest PS5 or Xbox Series X via the HDMI 2.1 cable, and you can play games at the full 4K 120 Hz that your PS5 and Xbox is designed to work with. PS5 and Xbox Series X cap out at 4K 120. However, if you do use this monitor with a PC or a Mac, you can set the monitor to 4K at 144 Hz. Obviously, to play games, at least on a PC or Mac, at full 4K at 144 Hz, you are going to need a pretty beefy graphics card. Of course, if you don't want to run games or watch content at 4K, you can obviously set the resolution to 1080 or 2560 by 1440p. You don't have to set the resolution to 4K, and you can even set the monitor to 60 Hz in favour of higher resolution. The screen is matte, which helps. You've got a lot of sunlight coming into your office or setup. We've got currently a very light, soft light shining directly at this monitor, and there's not a lot of glare, which is really impressive. Some monitors have got the screen supports VSync, display HDR 600, an advertised response time of 1 millisecond. However, we'll get into the response time later. And it also packs AMD FreeSync Premium. VSync and AMD FreeSync Premium is really good for you PC gamers. I don't game on PC, I'm only a console gamer, so the VSync and AMD FreeSync Premium support not much use to me. But if you are a PC gamer, then obviously the VSync AMD FreeSync Premium functionality is a bonus, meaning that you're not going to get any screen tear. If you don't know what VSync is, it's essentially a technology that reduces or eliminates screen tear in games such as CSGO or Call of Duty. It's a useful feature that a lot of monitors in this kind of mid-range tier You've got display HDR 600, which is really important to me. That is something that is important for console gamers, at least on the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Games that are designed to work with 4K screens that have HDR do look fantastic. For example, Forza Horizon 5 is designed to work at 4K at 120 Hz. It also features HDR, which means that when you're in sunny situations, it can get really, really bright. Or for example, if you're playing Forza Motorsport, which also supports HDR, the sky or the sun looks really bright, which looks amazing in contrast to the ground, which isn't as bright. However, having said that, HDR on this monitor isn't quite as good as other monitors that you can also find at this price point. The peak HDR brightness isn't as bright as other monitors on the market at this price range from the likes of Asus or other LG monitors. However, I found the HDR to be more than capable enough for my use. And definitely if you've got a Series X or PS5, then the fact that this supports HDR 600 means that your games are just going to look absolutely epic. When gaming on this monitor, games just look absolutely fantastic. Whether you're playing on your Xbox Series X or on your PC, the full 4K resolution just means that games look absolutely stunning. In addition, the 144Hz refresh rate, you can play Call of Duty on your PC up to 144Hz, which means obviously games are going to look and feel buttery smooth. When you're using this monitor to watch Netflix shows, the 4K resolution and the strong color range of the IPS panel is really, really amazing. The screen does come with an advertised grey to grey response time of 1 millisecond response time. However, that's a bit of an iffy claim. To achieve around the 1 millisecond response time, you're going to need to put the monitor in the fastest response time mode. The screen comes with 4 different response time modes. You've got off, normal, fast and faster. By default, the monitor is set to normal. If you do want to achieve the 1 millisecond response time, you're going to need to put the monitor in the 1 millisecond response time at the expense of ghosting. If you don't want to get any ghosting, you're going to have to put the response time back to normal or fast, which will reduce the response time to around 4 to 6 seconds. Then we get onto the input lag. Being an IPS panel and a large 32 4K monitor, you would expect the input lag to be slightly slow, which is true and is often a weakness of large IPS panels. Having a lower input lag can give you a significant advantage when it comes to gaming, especially in Warzone or competitive fast-paced games like Call of Duty or Fortnite. The input lag is noticeable on some games, such as Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6, the input lag on Far Cry 6, at least compared to my previous monitor, is simply not as good. Most users are not going to notice the difference, but if you're a complete tech nerd and you can tell the difference between milliseconds, it is something to bear in mind. Like I said, I definitely consider looking at smaller VA panels. Often VA panels or TN panels do have slightly lower input lags at the expense of slightly worse colours and viewing angles. However, having said that, for the majority of my use, I haven't experienced any problem. The input lag is quick enough for me on 90% of games. When it comes to the panel itself, obviously it's an IPS panel, which means the colours look fantastic and the viewing angles are really awesome if that's something that's important to you, which means that films and games are going to look really, 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 really good. The screen gets plenty bright. In my use, I usually set the brightness to around 65%. I find 100% brightness is definitely too bright, at least in my gaming setup. You've also got different presets, so you've got Gamer 1, Gamer 2, FPS, RTS, Reader. However, the advantage of having such a big screen is obviously the screen real estate. Being a 4K monitor, the scaling is quite good, so you can actually end up putting 2 or more windows side by side, and having that extra screen real estate is useful in that regard. Another thing I've noticed that sometimes when you are looking at a 32-inch IPS panel for long periods, like 4 or 5 hours, sometimes the brightness of the screen and the glare can give you eye strain, which is something I have noticed when you're using a monitor for long periods, 6-7 hours. Sometimes I have had to take breaks. When it comes to competition and price, LG competes against Asus, Gigabyte and Samsung. When we look at other monitors in competition to this LG monitor. There are lots of other monitors out there which offer similar features. Obviously you've got LG, Asus, ROG, Samsung, Gigabyte, or even Apple. This monitor, as I mentioned earlier, sits in the kind of middle tier range for gaming monitors. There are other monitors around the £500 to £600 price for this monitor, which offer similar specifications. There are other alternatives that will use different screen technologies such as VA. Asus make another monitor which is very similar. It's also 32 inches, 4K, 144Hz, but it's using a VA panel, and I discussed the advantages of a VA panel earlier in the video. Generally, the more money you spend on a monitor, the better it's going to be, up until a point. This monitor, when it released back at the end of 2023, released at about £600. Expect monitors of this price range to be similar in terms of what they offer. As you do spend more money, you're going to get higher refresh rates, such as 200Hz or even upwards of 300Hz. High-end, really ultra high-end monitors that come with higher refresh rates, upwards of 200Hz to 300Hz. As of now, Xbox and PlayStation, the current gen consoles, max out at 120Hz, which is what I use this monitor for most of the time. However, if you've got a extremely powerful graphics card and you know that your games can play at 4K, 200Hz, or you know that your games can run at 250 or even higher, 250Hz or even 300Hz, and your GPU graphics card on your PC is powerful enough to run games at that refresh rates, then definitely consider looking at the top tier, high-end monitors if money is no object and you want the ultimate gaming experience.